So this is about two friends. They were driving in Louisiana, United States. They were approaching to this town called Natchitoches. And they started to argue about how to pronounce the name of the town. And it started to get out of control. These were good friends, and now for this disagreement about how to pronounce the name of this town, they were about to harm the relationship. So they say, okay, let's do something. And as soon as we enter to the town, we ask the locals how to pronounce the name. And then we won't have to discuss anymore. I agreed. Whew. They made it to the town. They stop in the first fast food joint that they find at the entrance of the towns. They go there. They storm at the counter. And they say to the person that was the other side of the counter, says, please, we have an argument and you have to help us. Can you tell us slowly and clearly how to pronounce the name of this place? The employee opened the eyes real big, leaned over and says, Burger King. So I want to talk to you today about journey to unity. The journey to unity. And this is something that I wanted to share with you because I was inspired by events that happened in the last weeks. And it all starts with analyzing our opinions. Opinions that we have in life about many things. Opinions about situations, opinions about people, opinions about Judaism, opinions about books, opinions about many, many things that we have. And I was realizing that the opinions that we have, they have different sources. Sometimes they come from our parents, things that our parents told us or taught us in the past. Sometimes they come from our teachers. I was actually thinking about many things, that why do I think that way? And I remember sometimes it's because things that my teachers told me back in elementary school sometimes. And sometimes they're part of our own experiences. We went through something in life many, many years ago, and now we have an opinion about that. And the interesting thing is many of the things that we believe, many of the opinions that we have, it's something that came to us when we were kids or teenagers. And it's interesting that then we carry on, or we carry with us, these opinions forever. And I read once an article, and I don't know how scientific this is, but I will say to you because it makes sense to me. It would say that we basically learn until we are 20 years old, and then we basically spend the rest of our life defending all the things that we learn. And that actually doesn't make any sense. Because if I think about myself, everything that I learned before I was 20 years old, compared with everything that I learned after, and I will say that is basically what I learned after I was 20, those are the things that actually make sense, because as we get older, we have better tools to understand things, and especially better tools to filter things. So I think it doesn't really make sense to still get all those opinions that we formed when we were really little, and then spend the rest of our lives defending those things, considering how much more we learned from that time until now. Well, it is good when we reach a point in our lives when we realize this truth, and then we are open to change our opinions and to change things around. And if you ever went through that process, you know what I'm talking about. Because we all know people that they never change. But when somebody is courageous enough to challenge our beliefs, to challenge our opinions, then it could be a transformative experience. And I say this because, for example, we went through this at the Shari Zedek when we made so many changes. And why will it change? We've done this for 50 years. And I said, well, why are we doing it? We learn new things. We have new information. We have new experiences. So sometimes you have to revisit. our experiences, and that may result in a change of opinion. I believe that in Judaism in general, we still have a long journey ahead of us to challenge some of the opinions, some of the ways we do things. For example, I realize that in Judaism, we are big on labels. We like to label everything. It's something that we do. The Ashkenazi, the Sephardic, the Orthodox, the Conservative, the Reform, the Reconstructionist, the Under-Constructionist. Is that a thing? Probably not, but it makes. You know what I mean? We put labels to everything. And why we do that? Why do we like to put labels? Because I realize that sometimes when you label something, you diminish it. You limit it. And I was remembering the story of Joseph in the Torah. Remember Joseph? His father Jacob made him this coat of many colors. If you don't believe me, there is a musical about that. Or you can read it in the Torah as well. But so he got this coat. Now his brothers were jealous of him. What did they do? They wanted to get rid of him. But before they got rid of him, they labeled him. They called him the dreamer. Wasn't their brother anymore. Wasn't a person anymore. Now, he was just a dreamer. Can't do anything to my brothers, but to a dreamer, I can get rid of him. And that's the danger of labeling things or situation, because we feel that way we can control it, we can diminish it. So it's very difficult sometimes to challenge the opinions that we have and the names we put to things. Scary. Scary to do that, but I believe it's a necessary thing if we want to aim to have more unity, more togetherness in this world. The first thing we have to do sometimes to do that is to eliminate those lines that we draw, that separate us, and instead of that, to start drawing big circles to bring us all together. And because I believe that we are better together. When we are together, we are stronger, and we are better. We can go further. We can go further. And, and I say that this Dvar Torah was inspired by current events. And I was remembering of what happened at Congregation Beth Israel in Texas. You're all probably, what I'm talking about. The hostage taking and everything. And there are so many things to get inspired by that. But I discovered something that actually, I believe, at least not in the sources that I read, nobody talked about. Nobody talked about this. And it's the fact how leaders from pretty much every denomination in Judaism condemned this attack in this synagogue. What's so special about that? That it was the first time, actually, that I read opinions of Orthodox rabbis who called the place a synagogue. I remember when it was the attack to the Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh. Many Orthodox leaders refused to call that place a synagogue. How dare you call it a synagogue? They daven differently. They have instruments and microphones, so that's not a synagogue. And then I realized, well, we have a big problem within the Jewish people. Are we that separated that we cannot even call it a synagogue? But then, I guess, something happened between then and now. Maybe some profound reckoning and reflection of the way we perceive each other, to the point that I was so moved and inspired to read that everybody was calling Beth Israel a synagogue. And that made me think that we are going in the right direction. It's a small thing, to the point that maybe nobody even noticed it. I did, and inspired me to reflect to myself of all the things that keeps us apart, and how there are many things that they are not in our control. Not at all. But there's always something that we can do to bring us closer together. This week's Parsha, something happened. We are going to read, or actually we read, about the people of Israel going from one place to another, they encamped here, they moved there, and the words the Torah is using is very interesting. First, it said they journeyed, right? They journeyed, they went from one place to another, and the Hebrew word used in the Torah is vaisu, the plural. They journeyed. And then they said they arrived, vayavo, they, plural, arrived. And then they would say they encamped, vayachanu, here and there, they encamped different places. And that's the language it's using. But when the Israelites congregated in front of Ar Sinai, Mount Sinai, to receive the Torah, the word used there is vaichan, singular. He encamped. So how is that possible? That the Torah is using plural for many things, but now that they are in front of the Mount Sinai, the language switches to singular, and I believe that one of the most inspiring answers to that question is coming from Rashi. Rashi said, because at that point, they have one goal and one heart. Which means that we are different in many aspects, for many things. The way we do things, the way we dress, what we do for a living is very different. But when we are in front of the Torah, when we try to understand what God wants from us, what is necessary is to realize that we are all this together. We all have a common goal. Doesn't matter the way you daven. Doesn't matter the way you understand the will of God. What matters is to understand that we all have one goal and one heart in front of the Torah, which is to make this world a better world. So my challenge for all of you today is to reflect, not on what other people do to keep people apart, but what we can do to bring people together. Because at the end of the day, when we are together, we're better, stronger, and we can go way, way further. Remember the goal, and let's do it together. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.